It was a chilly autumn evening when William Stone, a self-made millionaire, decided to take a break from his hectic life and stroll through the city park. The quiet path, illuminated only by sparse lamplight, was a welcome change from his usual world of boardrooms and high-profile events. He was lost in thought when he noticed a figure slumped on a bench, partially hidden by the shadows. Curiosity piqued, William walked closer. As he approached, he saw that it was a young woman wrapped in a thin, worn jacket, shivering from the cold. Her wheelchair stood beside the bench, its wheel slightly tilted. The woman's face was hidden beneath a mass of tousled hair, and she seemed lost in her own world, oblivious to his approach. "Miss, are you all right?" William asked, his voice gentle but firm. The woman lifted her head slowly, and as her eyes met his, William felt a jolt. There was something hauntingly familiar about her face. He couldn't place where he had seen her before, but her eyes held a depth of sorrow and resilience that shook him. William felt a strange pull toward the young woman, as though there was something he was supposed to remember. Shaking off the feeling, he took off his coat and gently draped it over her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but guarded. "Do you have someone to call? A place to go?" he asked, glancing at her broken wheelchair. He could see now that the wheel was badly bent, likely leaving her stranded. She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, not really." Something inside him softened. Despite his wealth, William knew well the sting of loneliness. He had spent most of his life alone, his fortune bringing friends who valued his money more than his company. Perhaps that was why he felt compelled to help her. "Well," he began, "why don't we get you somewhere warm? There's a diner nearby. You can call someone if you like, or at least get a hot meal." She looked at him, her eyes wary but grateful. I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble," he insisted, giving her a reassuring smile. "And my mother would be ashamed if she knew I left someone like you out here." With that, William gently helped her up, steadying her as she took a few shaky steps. They made their way to the diner, and as they entered, the warm lights and smell of coffee filled the air, a comforting change from the cold outside. They settled into a booth, and William ordered 2 coffees and some sandwiches. As they sat in silence, William couldn't help but study her. Her face was thin, her cheekbones sharp, and there was an unmistakable weariness in her eyes, as though life had thrown her more than her share of hardship. "So," he ventured after a pause, "what's your name?" "Alice," she replied, her eyes flickering to meet his briefly before looking down at her hands. "Alice Carter." "Well, Alice Carter, you seem like you've had a rough night." She gave a short laugh, tinged with irony. "You could say that." The coffees arrived, and she wrapped her hands around the mug, savoring its warmth. They sat quietly for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. But William's curiosity wouldn't let him stay silent. "Do you have anyone you could call? Family, friends?" he asked. Alice shook her head. "Not anymore." Sensing that the topic was painful, William quickly changed the subject. "Well, tell me about you then. What do you like? Hobbies? Dreams?" She seemed surprised at his interest but indulged him. "Well, I used to love painting. I dreamed of going to art school, even started for a while. But that was a long time ago." "What happened?" "Life happened," she replied with a sigh. "Sometimes things just don't go as planned." Something about her response struck a chord with him. He'd built his life around meticulous plans and careful decisions, but he'd always wondered what his life would have been like if he'd taken different paths, followed dreams instead of dollars. They continued talking, and gradually Alice opened up. Her story was one of resilience and hardship, a series of setbacks that would have broken most people. Despite everything, she still had a sense of humor, a spark that had somehow survived all she'd been through. William found himself both captivated and humbled by her strength. As the evening wore on, he made a decision. "Alice, I don't know exactly what you're going through, but if you need help, I'd like to offer it." She looked at him, stunned. "Why would you do that?" He shrugged. Maybe because you seem like someone who deserves a break. Or maybe because I could use a friend who doesn't care about my bank account. He smiled wryly. What do you say? Alice thought for a long moment, as if weighing his offer carefully. Then, finally, she nodded. All right, William. I'll take that break. And with that, their unexpected friendship began. Over the next few weeks, William and Alice fell into an unexpected rhythm. He would visit her every evening after work, bringing dinner from different spots around the city, each meal accompanied by conversation that seemed to pick up right where they'd left off. For William, it was refreshing to talk with someone who saw past his status and wealth, someone who appreciated him for his thoughts, his humor, and his kindness. One night, over a meal of pasta from a local Italian bistro, William noticed Alice staring out the window, her expression distant. What's on your mind? He asked gently. She looked back at him, hesitating for a moment. You know, I never thought I'd feel this safe around someone again. It's strange, really. He didn't push but waited for her to continue. After the accident, after I lost the use of my legs, I felt like my whole life had stopped. Friends drifted away, my family, well, they didn't know how to handle it. And I just felt like a burden. Her voice grew softer, laced with old pain. Must have been a heavy weight to carry, William said, his tone understanding. She nodded, her eyes misty. It was. I didn't want to be someone else's responsibility. That's why I left and tried to make it on my own. It's been hard, but I figured it was better than feeling like I was holding someone back. William was quiet, absorbing her words. He felt a surge of admiration for her resilience, yet his heart ached for what she'd endured. He'd known struggle in his life, but his battles had been different. Fights to climb the ladder of success, to make a name for himself in a world that valued profit over people. But Alice's battle had been about survival, about holding on to her identity when everything seemed to conspire against her. Thank you for trusting me with that, he said finally. I can't pretend to know what it's been like for you, but I'm here now, and I want you to know you don't have to face everything alone. She looked at him, a small smile forming. You're the first person to say that in a long time. Over the coming days, William found himself drawn into Alice's world. He was fascinated by her art, the sketches she made in the quiet hours when she was alone, her unique perspective on the world around her. She sketched everything from the bustling city streets outside her window to quiet moments of introspection. The way she captured emotions on paper was unlike anything he'd seen. It moved him deeply. Why did you give up on art school? He asked one evening, looking at a sketch she'd made of the city park where they'd first met. Alice hesitated, a trace of sorrow flitting across her face. I couldn't keep up with the physical demands after the accident. And, well, it's expensive. I had to put my energy into survival, into making ends meet. William nodded, a plan beginning to take shape in his mind. What if you didn't have to worry about that anymore? She looked at him, confused. What do you mean? He leaned forward, his eyes intent. Alice, you have an extraordinary talent. I want to help you finish art school. No strings attached. Alice's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and disbelief. William, I can't let you do that. That's too much. It's not too much, he insisted. It's an investment in someone I believe in. You've given me a new perspective on life, Alice. Let me help you rediscover yours. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away, her usual composure slipping. No one's ever offered me something like that. I don't even know how to thank you. Just say yes, he replied with a warm smile. That'll be enough. After a long moment, she nodded. Yes, I'll do it. A few weeks later, Alice found herself back in a classroom, her supplies arranged in front of her, and a renewed sense of purpose filling her heart. William continued to support her, both emotionally and financially, and their friendship deepened. The two of them leaned on each other, their contrasting lives blending in a way that surprised them both. But one evening, as William was helping Alice prepare a portfolio for her first gallery showing, she noticed a strange look in his eyes. What is it? She asked, sensing he had something on his mind. He hesitated, then took a deep breath. Alice, I've been meaning to tell you something. I think I'm falling in love with you. Alice froze, her heart pounding. She'd sensed his growing affection, but she'd tried to ignore it, convincing herself that he saw her as a friend. She hadn't dared to imagine more. She'd been through too much, built too many walls around her heart to risk letting someone in like this. William, she paused, words failing her. He looked at her, his eyes gentle but filled with vulnerability. You don't have to say anything, Alice. I just needed you to know. Tears sprang to her eyes, and she reached out, taking his hand. You've been more than a friend, William. You've saved me in ways I never expected. But I need time to understand what this means for both of us. He nodded, his expression softening. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. And with that, they sat in silence, their hands entwined, 1,000 words passing between them without a single sound. Their relationship had shifted, but neither knew exactly where it would lead. What they did know was that, together, they had found a kind of healing they never thought possible. As they looked forward, both William and Alice knew they would face challenges. But this time, they wouldn't face them alone. With William's confession lingering between them, their friendship grew closer, yet undeniably more complicated. Alice was touched by his honesty and his patience. He never pressed her to return his feelings, content to remain at her side in whatever capacity she felt comfortable. But as time passed, she found herself drawn to him more deeply, caught between the intense emotions he inspired and her own fears. One evening, Alice was preparing for her first major art showcase, a nerve-wracking yet thrilling milestone. William had helped her secure a space in a reputable gallery, and she was readying the last of her paintings for display when she felt his presence beside her. You've really outdone yourself, Alice, he said, admiring a piece she had titled Resilience. It was a breathtaking work, a portrait of a woman standing on a darkened street, her face tilted to the sky, eyes closed as though savoring a quiet moment of peace. William couldn't help but notice the resemblance to Alice herself. Thank you, she replied, a small smile gracing her lips. This one, it means a lot to me. I didn't think I'd ever have the courage to show something so personal. You should be proud, he said softly. This painting, it's you, Alice. Strong, hopeful, and still here, despite everything. Her gaze dropped, and she took a shaky breath. I wouldn't have made it this far without you, William. You've been more than I ever could have asked for. The warmth of her words lingered between them, the tension nearly tangible. But as William looked into her eyes, he saw something deeper, a struggle that went beyond the typical nerves of an upcoming show. Is there something on your mind? He asked gently. She bit her lip, hesitating. I guess I'm scared. Scared of what this show means. Scared of what comes next. Scared of losing myself again. William took her hands in his expression filled with quiet reassurance. You're not going to lose yourself, Alice. Not this time. I'll be right here, every step of the way. She nodded, grateful for his unwavering support. But as he pulled her into a hug, she felt something shift within her. A feeling that had been simmering for weeks finally breaking the surface. She was ready to take the risk to let him in. William, she murmured, pulling back slightly to meet his gaze. There's something I've been meaning to say, too. He looked at her, his expression open and hopeful. What is it? Taking a deep breath, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. I think I'm falling for you too. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of her words settling over them. Then, slowly, a smile spread across William's face. He leaned in, his hand gently cupping her cheek as their lips met in a soft, tender kiss. It was a moment of vulnerability and promise, a step into an unknown future that both thrilled and terrified her. But with him by her side, she felt braver than she ever had before. The following weeks passed in a blur of gallery preparations and late-night talks, their relationship blossoming into something neither had expected. William supported her every step of the way, offering guidance, encouragement, and endless reassurance as she prepared to unveil her work to the world. Finally, the night of the gallery show arrived. The room was filled with people, friends, fellow artists, and curious patrons drawn in by the promise of fresh talent. William stayed by her side, a proud smile on his face as he introduced her to colleagues and art enthusiasts, encouraging her as she answered questions and spoke about her work. As the night wore on, Alice found herself surrounded by admirers and supporters, each one offering praise for her work. She was overwhelmed, her heart swelling with gratitude and disbelief. It felt surreal, like a dream she hadn't dared to believe in. But as she looked across the room, she saw William watching her, his gaze warm and steady, and she felt a sense of peace settle over her. When the night finally ended and the gallery emptied out, William and Alice lingered behind, savoring the quiet after the whirlwind of the evening. He pulled her into a warm embrace, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You did it, Alice," he whispered. "I'm so proud of you." She leaned into him, her heart overflowing with gratitude and love. "I couldn't have done it without you, William. Thank you for everything." Their relationship grew stronger as they moved forward, supporting each other through life's challenges and celebrating each triumph together. Through William, Alice learned to trust again, to believe in her dreams and in her own strength. And through Alice, William found a sense of purpose and fulfillment that went beyond wealth and success, a deep and lasting happiness he had never thought possible. In each other, they found the strength to face the past and the courage to build a future together. A future filled with love, art, and a friendship that had blossomed into a love story neither had ever expected. In the weeks following her gallery success, Alice's life transformed. She received offers to showcase her work in other galleries, art collectors expressed interest in her pieces, and she even gained a small but devoted following online. She felt as though she were living someone else's life, grateful yet cautious, her heart still learning to trust the new possibilities that lay before her. One evening, Alice and William were sitting together in his spacious penthouse overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, a sea of lights that sparkled against the night sky. But despite the beauty, she seemed distant, lost in thought. William noticed the look on her face and reached out, taking her hand. "Penny for your thoughts?" Alice hesitated, looking down at their intertwined fingers. I've been thinking about my past. About the people I left behind when I tried to start over on my own. My family, mostly." William nodded, sensing the gravity of her words. She had rarely mentioned her family, only in passing, but he could tell they still held a place in her heart. "Do you miss them?" he asked gently. She nodded, her voice soft. "I do, but I'm afraid too. When I left, I wanted to prove that I could make it on my own. I didn't want to be a burden. And now, I'm scared they'll see me differently, or that I'll disappoint them somehow." William squeezed her hand, his gaze filled with understanding. "Alice, from what you've told me, it sounds like you've grown a lot. Maybe it's time to reconnect with them, not as someone seeking approval, but as the person you are now. Strong, talented, and full of purpose." His words lingered in her mind, and after several days of consideration, Alice decided to reach out to her family. It was a daunting step, but with William's encouragement, she found the courage to make the call. Her mother answered, her voice thick with emotion, and within moments, Alice felt the familiar warmth of home. They spoke for hours, talking about everything and nothing, and by the end of the conversation, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. A few weeks later, William accompanied her on a visit to her family. It was a humble home in a quiet neighborhood, a stark contrast to William's life of luxury. But he felt at ease, welcomed warmly by Alice's family, who were overjoyed to see her thriving. Her parents embraced her, their pride evident, and her younger siblings marveled at her success, inspired by her resilience. William watched as Alice reconnected with her roots, seeing a side of her that was both vulnerable and radiant. As they left her family's home that evening, Alice turned to William, her expression one of gratitude and awe. "Thank you, William. You've helped me more than you know." He smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You did all of this yourself, Alice. I just gave a little nudge." Their relationship blossomed further in the months that followed, deepening in ways that surprised them both. They continued supporting each other, their lives becoming more intertwined, and their love growing stronger with each passing day. But as Alice's career gained momentum, William began to notice subtle changes in himself too. The once high-stakes world of business he had devoted his life to suddenly felt hollow in comparison to the joy he experienced supporting Alice's dreams. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, William returned to his penthouse, exhausted and frustrated. Alice was waiting for him, a look of concern in her eyes. "You seem drained," she said, wrapping her arms around him in a comforting hug. He sighed, leaning into her embrace. "Lately, I feel like I'm missing something. Work used to mean everything to me, but now it feels empty." She pulled back, searching his face. "Maybe you're ready for a change. You've spent so much of your life building your career, but it doesn't have to define you. There's so much more to life." Her words struck a chord with him, echoing thoughts he hadn't allowed himself to voice. In the days that followed, he began contemplating what he truly wanted out of life. He found himself drawn to the idea of giving back, of finding a way to make a positive impact beyond the corporate world. Alice's art, which had once been her own form of survival, inspired him to think about how he could contribute to something meaningful too. One afternoon, he approached her with a new proposal. "Alice, what would you think about starting a foundation together? We could support young artists, people who might not have the resources to follow their dreams, just like you were once struggling to do." Alice's face lit up, her excitement infectious. "William, that's an incredible idea. We could make a real difference." With newfound purpose, William and Alice poured their efforts into establishing the foundation, focusing on providing grants, mentorship, and workshops for underprivileged artists. Alice took on the role of creative director, her experience lending invaluable insights into the struggles young artists faced, while William used his business acumen to handle the logistical aspects. Their shared passion for the foundation brought them even closer. Each milestone they reached a testament to their partnership. They traveled to art schools and community centers, met with aspiring artists, and saw firsthand the impact they were making. Together, they built something that transcended their individual lives, a legacy that honored both of their journeys. In time, William found himself at peace with his decision to step back from the corporate world, embracing the fulfillment he felt in supporting others. And Alice, who had once felt lost and isolated, now stood as a beacon of hope and resilience for countless others. As they stood together at the opening ceremony for their foundation's first art exhibit, William took Alice's hand, a soft smile playing on his lips. "Thank you for changing my life," he said quietly, his eyes shining with emotion. Alice squeezed his hand, her own eyes brimming with gratitude. "And thank you for giving me a life worth dreaming about." Their journey had taken them through hardship and healing, through love and discovery, and now, standing side by side, they knew that they had found something far greater than they had ever imagined. A life and a love built together. Months after launching their foundation, the Radiance Project, William and Alice were elated by its success. The foundation was receiving support and recognition, and more importantly, they were making a tangible impact in young artists' lives. Aspiring painters, sculptors, and musicians who had once thought their dreams were out of reach now had the resources to pursue their art. One day, as Alice was organizing portfolios submitted for the Foundation's scholarship program, she came across a name that stopped her cold: Rachel Carter, her younger sister. Alice hadn't expected this, and her emotions flooded to the surface. It had been years since they'd spoken, and Rachel's life had always seemed far removed from art. Yet here was her portfolio, tucked between dozens of others, a mix of raw sketches and paintings that pulsed with emotion and intensity. She could sense Rachel's struggles, the complex swirl of frustration and passion evident in every brushstroke. But why had Rachel sent her work here? Did she know Alice was behind the foundation? Later that night, she shared the discovery with William. "I'm not sure what to do," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I haven't talked to her in so long. I don't even know if she submitted this knowing I'd see it." William wrapped an arm around her, offering quiet support. "Maybe this is a sign that she wants to reconnect. She might see the foundation as a bridge back to you." With William's encouragement, Alice decided to reach out. She sent a carefully worded letter, inviting Rachel to meet her, hoping to rebuild the bond they once had. Days passed without a reply, and Alice's hopes dimmed. But just as she began to accept that Rachel might not be ready, a response arrived. A short, simple message. "I'd like to meet. Name the time and place." Alice felt a mixture of relief and anxiety as they arranged to meet at a small cafe near the Foundation's headquarters. When the day arrived, she spotted Rachel at a corner table, her face partially hidden by her scarf, the same fierce determination Alice remembered in her younger sister's eyes. "Hi, Rachel," Alice said softly as she approached. Rachel looked up, her expression guarded but softened by a faint smile. "Hey, Alice." They spent the first few minutes catching up on the basics, each trying to find a balance between vulnerability and caution. Gradually, Rachel opened up, explaining how she'd found solace in art after Alice had left, how she'd struggled with her own insecurities and battles. Her art had become an outlet, a place where she could express everything she couldn't say aloud. "I always thought you abandoned us, Alice," Rachel admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "But now, I see why you had to leave. I see what you went through to find yourself. And I think I'm finally starting to understand." Alice reached across the table, taking Rachel's hand. "I never wanted to abandon you, Rachel. Leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I see you now, the artist you've become, and I feel so proud of you." They spent hours talking, shedding the layers of misunderstanding and resentment, piecing back together the relationship they'd lost. By the end of the day, Alice invited Rachel to join the Radiance Project as an intern, hoping they could grow closer through their shared love of art. Rachel accepted, her walls softened by the genuine bond they'd begun to rebuild. Over time, Rachel became an integral part of the foundation, adding a fresh, younger perspective to their projects. William and Alice found themselves inspired by her determination and creativity, each of them learning from the other as they worked together. As the foundation flourished, William and Alice also grew closer, their partnership deepening with every shared success and setback. They continued to explore new avenues for the foundation, expanding into underserved communities, and even creating an artist residency program. With every initiative, they watched young artists blossom, and both felt a sense of fulfillment they had once believed was out of reach. Yet as their foundation reached new heights, William began to feel a familiar pressure. The media was taking note of the Radiance Project and had started to dig into his past. As a millionaire businessman who'd once played the corporate game ruthlessly, he knew his history might cast a shadow on the foundation's mission. One morning, as he read an article questioning his sudden shift from corporate magnate to philanthropist, William felt a pang of self-doubt. He knew why he'd changed. Alice, her resilience, and her art had shown him a new path. But the world wouldn't understand that. They'd only see what fit the narrative of a wealthy man seeking redemption. That evening, he shared his concerns with Alice. "I worry that my past might tarnish everything we've worked so hard to build. I don't want anyone questioning your vision or our purpose." Alice took his hands, looking into his eyes with a fierce determination. "William, you're not defined by your past. You've already changed, more than anyone could know. The Radiance Project is our work, and no one can take that from us. If anything, your journey makes it stronger. It's proof that people can grow, can be inspired to change." Her words gave him strength, reminding him of the journey they had both taken to reach this point. Together, they decided to address the criticisms head-on. William gave a rare, heartfelt interview, opening up about the personal transformation he'd experienced since meeting Alice and how her strength and vision had inspired him to give back. The public responded with surprising warmth, many commending his honesty and newfound sense of purpose. With their foundation's mission affirmed, William and Alice continued to pursue their vision, expanding their reach and empowering more young artists. As they stood together, watching a new batch of scholarship recipients present their work at the Foundation's annual showcase, William felt a deep sense of contentment. He looked over at Alice, a soft smile playing on his lips. "Thank you for showing me what really matters. You've changed my life in ways I can't put into words." She smiled back, her eyes full of love and gratitude. "And you've given me a life I never thought possible. Together, we've created something beautiful." In the years that followed, they continued to build on their legacy, a partnership bound by love, purpose, and a shared mission to lift others up. They knew they would face challenges, but with each other's support, they believed they could face anything. Their love, forged in hardship and resilience, had become a source of hope and inspiration, not only for them but for everyone their foundation touched. And in this shared journey, they had found the life and the love they had both been searching for. As the Radiance Project grew, William and Alice found themselves navigating an expanding world of influence and responsibility. Their foundation had become a lifeline for countless aspiring artists, and they were constantly searching for new ways to amplify its impact. Yet, with the foundation's success came an overwhelming demand on their time and energy. One evening, after a particularly intense week of travel and meetings, Alice and William found themselves on a quiet balcony at a gala held in honor of the foundation. The sounds of music and laughter floated from the ballroom below, but they felt miles away from the celebration. "This is all incredible but exhausting," Alice admitted, leaning against the balcony railing, the city lights stretching out before her. "Sometimes I wonder if I can keep up with it all." William looked at her, seeing the weariness in her eyes. He took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I know. I feel the same way. We've built something amazing, but maybe we're pushing ourselves too hard. I don't want us to lose ourselves in the process." She nodded, a faint smile softening her face. "You're right. It's easy to get lost in the work when it's something you're so passionate about. But we can't pour from an empty cup." That night, they decided to shift their focus toward achieving a balance. They brought on more dedicated team members, empowering them to lead projects and delegating responsibilities that once fell solely on their shoulders. This allowed them to focus on the heart of the foundation, while also giving them the time and space to nurture their relationship and personal lives. With this newfound balance, William and Alice took time to explore other aspects of their lives that had long been set aside. William returned to a forgotten hobby, woodworking, a craft he'd enjoyed before his life had been overtaken by corporate obligations. Alice joined him in his studio on weekends, learning to carve small sculptures and appreciating the meditative rhythm of the craft. For both of them, these moments felt like a return to simplicity, a reminder of the life they wanted to create beyond the demands of their careers. Their relationship deepened in these quiet moments, free from the demands of their public roles. William proposed one warm autumn evening, in a grove near Alice's favorite art supply store, where the leaves danced in shades of gold and red. It was a simple, heartfelt proposal, just the two of them standing hand in hand. Alice, overwhelmed with emotion, said yes without a moment's hesitation. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends, family, and many of the artists whose lives they'd impacted through the Radiance Project. Rachel, now a recognized artist herself and a key member of the foundation, served as Alice's maid of honor. Seeing her sister by her side as she married William filled Alice with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. After the wedding, William and Alice decided to take a long overdue honeymoon. They traveled through Europe, exploring the art museums of Paris, the vineyards of Tuscany, and the quiet villages along the Mediterranean. They spent hours wandering the cobblestone streets of hidden towns, sharing meals in small cafes, and losing themselves in the freedom of discovery. For the first time in years, they could simply be themselves, free from the responsibilities that had defined their lives. The trip brought them even closer, inspiring new dreams for their foundation. They envisioned expanding its reach internationally, creating residencies in various countries to help young artists gain cross-cultural experiences. They returned from their honeymoon filled with fresh ideas, excited to bring them to life. Back home, they worked tirelessly to make these ideas a reality. They launched a pilot program in Europe, partnering with art communities in Paris, Florence, and Barcelona. Soon, the Radiance Project had established residencies in these cities, allowing young artists to immerse themselves in new environments, surrounded by history and inspiration. However, with the foundation's growth came the challenge of balancing its expansion with maintaining its core values. William and Alice found themselves facing difficult decisions, at times debating how to preserve the foundation's authenticity as it became more visible on a global scale. One evening, after a particularly tense board meeting, they sat together on the couch in their home, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. Alice looked at William, her expression filled with warmth and resolve. "I know this journey hasn't been easy, but I believe in what we're building," she said, her voice steady. "We just need to remember why we started this in the first place." William nodded, his own resolve strengthened by her words. "We started this because we believed in the power of art to heal, to uplift, to inspire. As long as we hold on to that, we won't lose our way." Their renewed commitment to the Foundation's mission served as a guiding light, allowing them to steer the Radiance Project through its challenges with integrity. They made it a priority to stay connected with the artists they supported, attending showcases, holding open forums, and constantly seeking feedback. This approach not only helped maintain the Foundation's authenticity, but also kept them grounded in the lives of those they sought to help. Years passed and their legacy grew. Together, they created art festivals, funded community projects, and established scholarships that supported hundreds of artists from diverse backgrounds. Through their foundation, they had built a network of artists who felt empowered to pursue their dreams, to tell their stories, and to uplift others. As William and Alice looked back on their journey, they felt a profound sense of fulfillment. They had found each other in a moment of vulnerability, and together, they had built a life that was a testament to resilience, love, and purpose. They knew they had achieved something extraordinary, not only through the success of the foundation but in the way they had transformed their own lives and the lives of those around them. In the end, they had created a world where art was not only a form of expression but a force for change, a legacy that would live on long after they were gone. And as they stood together, watching a new generation of artists present their work, they knew they had found something far greater than wealth or fame, a life filled with love, purpose, and endless possibility. Years passed, and the Radiance Project blossomed into one of the most respected philanthropic initiatives in the art world. Its presence was felt across continents, a network of artists and communities brought together by shared creativity and resilience. William and Alice had poured their hearts into this vision, watching with quiet pride as countless lives were transformed. With their foundation well established, William and Alice decided to take a step back from the day-to-day operations, passing the torch to Rachel, who had grown into a capable leader and visionary. Under her guidance, the Radiance Project expanded even further, reaching underserved communities in remote parts of Asia, South America, and Africa. She led with the same passion and care she had seen in her sister, carrying their mission forward with a fresh perspective and boundless energy. Retiring from the Foundation's daily demands allowed William and Alice to explore another dream they had nurtured quietly for years, creating an artist village in a nearby rural area, a place where artists could live, work, and connect with each other and nature. They envisioned a sanctuary where artists could escape the pressures of urban life, surrounded by mountains and rivers, in an environment designed to inspire creativity. They began to gather support from friends, local businesses, and even some former artists from the Radiance Project. With time, this artist village took shape, a collection of small cottages, studios with high ceilings and wide windows, communal spaces for exhibitions and gatherings, and even a library filled with art books and literature. There was an organic garden, a stone amphitheater for open-air performances, and an expansive meadow that served as a quiet escape. The first residents of the artist village arrived with wide-eyed excitement, ready to immerse themselves in this haven of inspiration. William and Alice would visit often, hosting workshops and sitting down to long dinners with the artists, hearing their stories and sharing their own journey. The village became not only a sanctuary for art but also a place of mentorship, where William and Alice found purpose in sharing the wisdom they gained through years of hard work, failure, and triumph. In this peaceful setting, they witnessed a beautiful transformation in the artists who came to stay. Some were emerging talents who'd faced tough odds. Others were seasoned creators seeking fresh inspiration. Regardless of their background, each artist found something profound in the village's quiet embrace. They left more than just paintings, poems, or sculptures. They left a part of themselves, enriching the village with every piece they created. One summer evening, the village celebrated its first annual art festival, an event open to the public and filled with exhibits, performances, and workshops. Visitors from nearby cities and towns filled the grounds, marveling at the installations and joining in the festivities. William and Alice watched from the edges of the crowd, seeing families, children, and aspiring artists mingle among the displays and exhibits. At sunset, the artists gathered in the amphitheater to present a collaborative mural they had painted on a vast canvas spread across a hillside. The mural depicted scenes from the village itself: artists at work, the lush landscape, and a radiant sun, symbolizing hope and renewal. The artists dedicated the mural to William and Alice, honoring the couple who had made this sanctuary possible. Overwhelmed by the gesture, Alice took a step forward to say a few words. Her voice, though softened by age, held the same warmth and strength that had carried her through every hardship. "Thank you all," she began, her gaze sweeping over the faces of those gathered. "This place is more than just land or buildings. It's a home, a place where each of you can express yourselves, where your art can flourish, and where you can find peace and community. William and I dreamed of a life where creativity and kindness could change the world. Seeing you here, together, creating something so beautiful, reminds us of why we started this journey." The crowd applauded, and Alice felt William's arm wrap around her shoulders, his presence steady and reassuring as always. She looked up at him, her heart full, and he smiled back, a look of deep love and gratitude in his eyes. As night settled over the village, Alice and William sat by the fire pit with a few artists, sharing stories under the stars. They spoke about the importance of art, of finding one's voice, and of the unexpected turns life had taken to bring them all together in this moment. The following years brought with them the joys and inevitable challenges of life. William and Alice began to face the realities of aging, and though they slowed down, they continued to be a guiding light for the Radiance Project and the Artist Village. Rachel took on more responsibilities, growing into a strong leader who championed new ideas and initiatives. In time, William and Alice's health required them to move closer to their family, yet they remained in constant touch with the foundation and the village. Artists would send them letters and photos, sharing the art they were creating, keeping the couple connected to the life they had fostered. And, to the artists, William and Alice's presence was felt everywhere. In the murals, in the shared spaces, and in the quiet moments of inspiration. One spring day, when Alice's health began to fade, William sat by her side, holding her hand. They spoke in quiet whispers, reminiscing over their life together. The early days when they'd first met, the challenges they had faced, and the journey they had taken to create a legacy that had touched so many lives. "You gave me the courage to dream, Alice," William said, his voice thick with emotion. "To believe that life could be more than just success or status. You showed me what really matters." She smiled, squeezing his hand weakly. "And you gave me the strength to believe in myself, William. Together, we found something I never thought possible. A life filled with love, purpose, and endless hope." In the days that followed, word spread through the Radiance Project and the Artist Village about Alice's passing. Artists from around the world sent in their condolences, many of whom had never met her but had felt the profound impact of her legacy. William, though grieving, found comfort in the incredible community they had built together. Rachel, now the full head of the Radiance Project, organized a tribute to Alice, inviting artists from every corner of the foundation's influence to contribute a piece in her honor. The tribute became a living tapestry of Alice's spirit, a mosaic of paintings, sculptures, poems, and songs that celebrated her life and her unwavering belief in the power of art. In his later years, William continued to visit the artist village, his heart full of memories and gratitude. He would sit by the hillside mural, now weathered but still vibrant, and watch the new artists at work, finding peace in the continuation of the dream he and Alice had shared. And so, their legacy lived on, a testament to the love, resilience, and vision of two people who had found each other in a park one fateful evening and had gone on to change the world, one artist at a time. After Alice's passing, the Radiance Project flourished under Rachel's steady leadership, evolving into an organization known worldwide for its commitment to empowering artists from all walks of life. Rachel was determined to honor her sister's memory, expanding the foundation's reach and introducing new programs that focused on using art as a tool for healing, education, and social change. Under her guidance, the Radiance Project opened its doors even wider, offering programs for marginalized communities, youth facing adversity, and even therapeutic art residencies for veterans and people recovering from trauma. The Artist Village, which Alice and William had envisioned as a simple sanctuary for creative growth, became a vital part of this mission, welcoming artists who had never before found spaces that celebrated their stories and talents. One of Rachel's first initiatives was to partner with local schools, integrating art programs that encourage children to express their experiences, dreams, and emotions through painting, music, and dance. Teachers noticed a profound shift as children who struggled to find their voices in other subjects thrived in art. They became bolder, more self-assured, and more willing to share parts of themselves that had previously remained hidden. William, now in his later years, watched with quiet pride as Rachel led the Radiance Project to new heights. Though he couldn't visit the village as often as before, he stayed connected through letters and visits from artists and foundation members, many of whom saw him as a mentor and friend. Artists would come to his home, sharing sketches, poems, and photographs, knowing how much he cherished seeing the beauty of their creations and how they carried on the vision he and Alice had set in motion. One particularly memorable visit came from a young artist named Maya, who had grown up in a rough neighborhood and had struggled to overcome personal loss and hardship. Maya, now an emerging painter, had attended an art therapy program funded by the Radiance Project. The program had given her the tools to express her experiences and heal through her work. When she met William, she presented him with a painting she had created, a portrait of Alice based on the stories she'd heard from those who had known her. The painting captured Alice's warmth, resilience, and grace, her gaze focused outward as if looking toward a hopeful future. William, deeply moved, accepted the painting with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Maya. Alice would have loved this, and she would be so proud of you. For your strength, for the courage it took to tell your story." Maya's visit sparked an idea in Rachel, who wanted to ensure that artists like Maya continued to have access to opportunities, long after William was no longer able to be involved. She proposed creating an annual grant in William and Alice's honor, one that would fund community-driven art projects around the world, aimed at sparking positive change and building resilience. They named it the Stonecarter Legacy Grant, and it quickly became one of the most sought-after grants for community artists. Each year, projects emerged in the most unexpected places: a mural in a small town in Peru, a dance program for at-risk youth in New Orleans, a storytelling workshop for refugees in Greece. The grant created an impact far beyond the foundation itself, spreading the couple's legacy across continents, cultures, and communities. The grant also inspired a new generation of leaders within the Radiance Project. Many young artists who had received support through the foundation went on to become mentors, educators, and advocates in their own right. They returned to the foundation as staff, program directors, and ambassadors, dedicating their lives to the cause that had once lifted them up. They carried William's and Alice's spirit with them, honoring their legacy with every life they touched. Decades passed, and the Radiance Project continued to grow, adapting to new challenges and supporting artists through changing times. The Artist Village expanded, its cottages filled with residents from every corner of the world. Each generation of artists left their mark on the village, creating sculptures, gardens, and murals that transformed the landscape into a living gallery. Among these works, Alice's hillside mural stood as a testament to her vision, preserved with care and revered by all who came to the village. William lived to see many of these changes, witnessing his and Alice's dream become a force that spanned across the globe. He often spoke to new artists about the power of art to heal and connect, telling stories of Alice's journey and their shared belief that creativity could transform lives. One of his last contributions to the foundation was a collection of writings, a memoir he'd been working on for years, capturing the story of his and Alice's journey from the night they met in the park to the life they had built together. The memoir, titled Radiance, A Journey of Love, Art, and Resilience, became a beloved part of the Foundation's library, inspiring countless artists who passed through its doors. William passed peacefully in his sleep one winter night, leaving behind a legacy woven through the lives of all who had known him and Alice. Rachel, along with the Foundation's leaders and artists, honored his memory with a tribute at the Artist Village, celebrating his life and the indelible impact he had made. They shared stories, read from his memoir, and spoke of the countless ways he had changed their lives, carrying forward the mission he and Alice had built together. Years later, the Radiance Project became an enduring symbol of hope, a testament to the transformative power of art. Alice and William's legacy lived on in the artists who continued to pass through the Foundation, in the communities uplifted by its grants, and in the friendships and partnerships forged through their shared purpose. And in the Artist Village, where the hills were dotted with cottages and sculptures, the hillside mural of Alice's face watched over the sanctuary they had created, a symbol of love, resilience, and the radiant spirit of two people who had, against all odds, changed the world one artist at a time. Decades after William's passing, the Radiance Project had evolved into a global institution, renowned not just for its artistic impact but as a pioneering model for creative community building. The Foundation's influence extended far beyond the art world, reaching into the fields of mental health, social justice, and environmental sustainability. It had grown into a movement, one that inspired other foundations, organizations, and even governments to support art as a tool for healing and empowerment. Under Rachel's leadership, a new generation of directors and artists joined the Foundation, each bringing their own vision while staying true to the values that Alice and William had established. They embraced technology, creating digital art residencies that connected artists from all over the world. They launched art therapy programs for people recovering from natural disasters, held storytelling workshops for underrepresented voices, and pioneered sustainable practices in all their spaces. The Artist Village, now known as Radiant Grove, had become a destination not just for artists but for anyone seeking peace, creativity, and connection. Word of Radiant Grove had spread widely, and it became a sought-after destination for creative retreats, healing, and transformative workshops. The cottages that Alice and William had built were now joined by newer structures designed by artists from around the world, each one unique and reflecting diverse cultural styles, yet all rooted in harmony with the land. One summer, the directors of the Radiance Project decided to organize a multi-generational art exhibit in the village, a retrospective to honor the hundreds of artists who had passed through the Foundation over the decades. The exhibit showcased artworks from the earliest recipients of the Foundation's support, as well as pieces from new, emerging voices. Some of the featured artists were no longer alive, but their families came to see their work displayed, a testament to the Foundation's enduring legacy. As people from around the world arrived at Radiant Grove to view the exhibit, they walked the trails that wound through the village, admiring sculptures nestled among wildflowers, poetry engraved on stone paths, and murals that depicted scenes from across the world. Among these pieces was Alice's hillside mural, lovingly preserved by each generation, its colors just as vibrant as the day it had been painted. The mural had become a focal point, a gathering place for visitors and artists alike, its energy a living tribute to Alice's strength and vision. During the exhibit, visitors were encouraged to contribute their own art to a community canvas. People of all ages took up brushes, markers, and charcoal, leaving behind pieces of themselves, small drawings, poems, and signatures that transformed the canvas into a tapestry of stories and dreams. The final piece was so powerful and moving that the Radiance Project decided to make it a permanent part of the village, calling it the Collective Canvas of Radiance. As the exhibit came to a close, the Radiance Project announced the creation of the Alice and William Stone Scholarship, an annual fellowship that provided young artists with a year-long residency at Radiant Grove, along with mentorship, resources, and opportunities to showcase their work. The scholarship quickly became renowned, with artists from all over the world applying for the chance to live, create, and learn in the space that Alice and William had once envisioned as a simple sanctuary. Each year, the scholarship recipients gathered at Radiant Grove for an orientation, where they would read excerpts from William's memoir and learn about Alice's life and legacy. These stories served as both inspiration and grounding, reminding them that the Radiance Project was built on the courage and resilience of two people who had dared to dream of a world made better by art. One year, a young scholarship recipient named Leo arrived at Radiant Grove. He was an immigrant whose family had fled their war-torn home, and he had turned to art as a means of processing the loss and displacement he felt. For Leo, coming to Radiant Grove was a chance to heal and to give voice to the experiences he had carried alone. During his time at the village, Leo created a series of paintings that captured scenes from his childhood, images of his family, of the streets he'd grown up on, and of the journey they'd taken to find safety. His work moved everyone who saw it, sparking conversations and connections across cultures. At his final showcase, he spoke of the peace he had found at Radiant Grove and the hope that his art could serve as a bridge for others. As Leo's story spread, it became clear that the foundation's influence had gone beyond supporting artists. It had become a force for connection, empathy, and shared humanity. Leo went on to become a mentor within the Radiance Project, returning each year to help new scholarship recipients find their own voices, just as he had found his. Years continued to pass, and the Radiance Project's influence grew across generations. Alice and William's legacy remained alive, not only in the structures they had built but in the spirit of every artist who passed through the foundation. Their vision had transcended time, becoming a timeless reminder of the power of art to inspire, heal, and transform lives. In the village's heart stood a bronze statue, commissioned by Rachel in memory of Alice and William. It depicted them side by side, Alice with a paintbrush and William holding an open book, looking out across the valley. Inscribed at the base of the statue were the words Alice had once spoken. Creativity is resilience. It's the spark that brings light into the world, even in its darkest moments. Visitors who arrived at Radiant Grove would pause at the statue, feeling the warmth and hope that Alice and William had given to the world. They had started with nothing but a chance meeting in a park and a shared belief in art's potential. And from that small beginning, they had built something that touched countless lives. As the sun set over the village each evening, casting long shadows over the hills and the cottages, artists would gather at the hillside mural, watching as the colors came alive in the fading light. They would share stories, dreams, and quiet moments of reflection, knowing that they were part of something far greater than themselves. A legacy that had become a living, breathing testament to love, art, and the radiant spirit of two people who had dared to dream. As the years unfolded, the Radiance Project grew beyond anyone's wildest dreams, evolving into a cornerstone of artistic and social innovation. It became not only a beacon for artists but also a platform for cultural exchange, social healing, and community transformation. Under the guidance of Rachel and subsequent leaders inspired by her dedication, the Foundation's influence expanded into fields as diverse as environmental conservation, global storytelling, and peacebuilding. Radiant Grove, once a secluded artist's haven, became a celebrated cultural heritage site, preserved not only for its beauty but for the profound role it had played in inspiring change. People from all over the world came to walk its trails, learn its history, and immerse themselves in the creativity that saturated its air. Young artists, students, and even families would visit as part of cultural tours, using the space for self-discovery and personal growth. To keep the spirit of Alice and William's legacy alive, the directors of the Radiance Project launched an annual global initiative called Art for Radiance. Each year, during a designated week, artists, schools, and communities would dedicate time to creating public art that expressed resilience, hope, and unity. Entire cities transformed into open galleries, filled with murals, sculptures, and installations inspired by the vision of the Radiance Project. The event united people across continents, turning once-forgotten streets, abandoned buildings, and local parks into vibrant displays of art and expression. One particular art for Radiance installation gained international recognition and became an enduring symbol of the Foundation's vision. In a small, underserved town, a group of local artists painted a sprawling mural on the side of an abandoned factory. The mural depicted scenes of community, dreams, and growth, with messages of unity written in different languages and symbols from various cultures. The installation drew thousands of visitors, transforming the once-forgotten factory into a vibrant community center. Inspired by the impact, local leaders converted the space into a permanent gallery and community hub, keeping the spirit of the Radiance Project alive in their town. As the Radiance Project continued to inspire transformation worldwide, its scholarship programs grew, including residencies focused on art-based research, social innovation, and education. The artists who completed these residencies went on to lead art therapy programs, establish community spaces, and create global networks for young creators. Some collaborated with scientists, exploring how art could help convey complex social and environmental issues to the public. Others worked with humanitarian organizations, designing art-based programs to bring healing and resilience to communities impacted by war and crisis. One particularly impactful residency resulted in a groundbreaking project called Artful Minds, a series of workshops that combined creative practices with mental health therapy. Led by former recipients of the Stone Carter Legacy Grant, Artful Minds trained counselors and artists to use art as a form of therapy for people dealing with trauma and grief. The program found success in schools, hospitals, and rehabilitation centers, helping people express difficult emotions and find healing through creativity. Artful Minds quickly gained international acclaim, becoming an enduring part of the Radiance Project's mission to promote art as a universal language of healing. As the Foundation's reach grew, so did the respect for Alice and William's legacy. Cultural leaders and historians recognized the Radiance Project as a movement that had influenced not only art but also the ways communities understood and approached healing, connection, and resilience. Art programs inspired by the Foundation were incorporated into school curricula around the world, and government bodies looked to its model as an example of how art could be integrated into public services for lasting social impact. In the Artist Village, Radiant Grove became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking inspiration. Each year, people gathered from different cultures and backgrounds to celebrate the annual Radiant Festival of Arts, a week-long event featuring art installations, workshops, performances, and storytelling circles. The festival's centerpiece was always Alice's mural on the hillside, a tradition carried on by each generation, as artists young and old added to the mural's landscape with new elements, creating a dynamic, living tribute to Alice and William's vision. One evening during the festival, an elderly Rachel addressed the crowd, her voice filled with the wisdom and warmth she'd inherited from her sister. She shared stories about Alice and William, recounting how their love, resilience, and dedication had built the Radiance Project from a simple dream into a movement that spanned the globe. She looked out over the crowd, at faces from countless countries and cultures, all brought together by their shared belief in art as a force for good. "My sister once told me," Rachel said, "that art was more than just a practice. It was a testament to survival, a language that spoke where words failed." Today, I look around and see that her words were true. Art is not just something we create. It's something we live, something we pass on to others, something that endures. The crowd erupted into applause, the cheers reverberating across the village. And in that moment, Alice and William's legacy was more alive than ever. The festival concluded with a shared art piece. Each participant placed their handprint on a large canvas, creating a tapestry of colors and patterns that symbolized unity in diversity. This new tradition, known as the Hands of Radiance, became an annual addition to the festival, symbolizing the continued growth and unity that the Radiance Project had nurtured. In the years that followed, the Foundation's influence grew, continuing to shape lives across generations. Schools, universities, and communities celebrated Alice and William's legacy with public art projects, creative workshops, and programs inspired by the Radiance Project. As the world continued to change, the Foundation's message of resilience, empathy, and creativity became more relevant than ever, inspiring new leaders and artists to keep the vision alive. And so, across continents and communities, Alice and William's dream endured, a living, breathing testament to the power of art and human connection. Their story was shared in classrooms, recounted in artist circles, and celebrated in every mural, every painting, and every sculpture created by those touched by the Radiance Project. Their legacy lived on in the lives of all who had been transformed by their love, resilience, and unwavering belief in the boundless potential of the human spirit. And through it all, the Radiance Project continued to radiate, its light a beacon of hope and inspiration, as enduring and expansive as the stars. Years flowed into decades, and the influence of the Radiance Project only deepened. It had become so much more than a foundation. It was a movement of unity and compassion, a testament to the human spirit's resilience and creativity. By the time Rachel had retired, the Radiance Project had expanded into a network of interconnected sanctuaries like Radiant Grove, each one a community-driven space devoted to art, healing, and connection. These spaces existed on every continent, from bustling cities to remote landscapes, each one embodying the spirit of Alice and William's original vision. The artist village at Radiant Grove remained the heart of the movement, a pilgrimage site for creatives, dreamers, and seekers. The hillside mural, now a monumental piece spanning generations, had grown to depict the stories, symbols, and styles of artists from around the world, each contributing their own interpretation of resilience and beauty. Its colors and figures formed a mosaic of human experience, symbolizing the unity and diversity that the Radiance Project stood for. In the decades following its founding, the Radiance Project continued to inspire and empower communities, evolving as each generation brought fresh ideas and passion to its mission. The foundation partnered with schools, hospitals, shelters, and community centers worldwide, expanding its programs to include virtual residencies, community art clinics, and social impact grants that funded art projects addressing issues like climate change, mental health, and human rights. The Foundation's reach was now so vast that people of all ages and backgrounds had heard of the Radiance Project, whether through an installation, a workshop, or the annual Art for Radiance Week. One evening, during the centennial celebration of the Radiance Project, people gathered from across the globe to honor the Foundation's century of impact. The celebration took place at Radiant Grove, where representatives from every Radiant sanctuary came together to reflect on the legacy that had transformed countless lives. The celebration included performances, exhibitions, and testimonials from artists whose journeys had been uplifted by the Foundation's support. A central moment of the evening was the unveiling of a new addition to the hillside mural. Two figures, painted with incredible detail and care, representing Alice and William as they had been in the early days of their journey. The figures looked out over the village, their expressions calm and joyful, surrounded by the scenes of life, love, and creativity they had inspired. The mural was met with awed silence, followed by applause and cheers as the crowd paid tribute to the couple who had started it all. As night fell, a series of lanterns were lit, each one dedicated to an artist who had passed through the Radiance Project. They floated across the hillside, illuminating the village in a warm, golden glow. Artists, leaders, and visitors joined hands, forming a ring around the village, connected by the legacy they shared. Together, they recited the words Alice had once spoken. Creativity is resilience. It's the spark that brings light into the world, even in its darkest moments. In that circle, they felt the enduring presence of Alice and William, their love and vision woven into every heart and every hand. As the years continued to pass, the Radiance Project remained a powerful force in the world, a legacy that transcended boundaries of culture, language, and time. Children learned about Alice and William's story in their classrooms. Young artists studied their lives as an example of the courage to pursue one's passion and communities around the world honored their legacy through murals, festivals, and art gatherings. Alice and William's story became a part of the world's collective memory, a reminder of what can happen when two people, against all odds, choose to believe in the power of love and creativity. In every piece of art created under the influence of the Radiance Project, in every mural on a city wall, in every sanctuary that offered peace and inspiration to a weary soul, Alice and William's legacy lived on. Their dream had become a world-changing reality, a gift to humanity that would echo across generations, as endless and luminous as the stars.